Greetings and welcome from the Fergan. Firstly, I'd just like to say a big thank you to everyone who watched the first two videos, who subscribed to the channels, who shared the videos around, joined the Telegram channel, and those of you who left positive comments under the videos. It was all very heartening. This is all very new to me, so words of encouragement are much appreciated, so thank you. In the first two videos, I mentioned that my intention was to stay positive with this series of videos, and that hasn't changed. But in this video, I just like to dwell on something a bit more negative, just for the minute. So if you'll just indulge me, the reason is because we can't know how to prepare for the future. If we don't know what we're preparing for, if we don't know what we're facing. So in this video, I'd just like to go over some of my predictions and some of my thoughts about what the immediate and more distant future may hold for those of us who don't intend to go along with this this whole agenda, this move into a technocratic, digital, tyrannical society. The first thing to mention is that this is all about an economic destruction. It's all about destroying the economy. If you look back at the wars of the last few centuries, you'll find that they were largely unnecessary and that they happened because the central bankers always sought to foment wars and then encourage nations to enter those wars and borrow large sums of money from them, from the central banks. To this day, we're still paying off we're still paying off the loan from World War I, let alone World War II in Britain. So this is a way of indebting and enslaving future generations perpetually, because when you owe someone money, you are essentially, in a sense, their property. They own a part of you, and this is what this manufactured crisis has been about as well. So it's basically the same principle as any war. This whole manufactured crisis has been created specifically with the intention of destroying our economies, so that the IMF, which essentially serves as the global central bank, that's the International Monetary Fund, they have been loaning governments vast sums of money to pay for the lockdowns. All of this will, of course, need to be repaid in some form. There's, so if we look at the vaccinations, the whole vaccine program for a start, this is obviously a real kind of topic of the moment, because in Britain, I believe as many as 20% of the population have now been vaccinated. So we're quite ahead. Well, I shouldn't say that like it's a positive thing, but Britain is further ahead in this program than most other countries. The vaccine, many think it's going to be the key to freedom. So Britain has this so-called roadmap out of lockdown. We're going to be given our summer. And I can't rule that out, because even though I do believe that lockdowns are going to be going on for a long time to come, I can't rule out that we'll be given some freedom this summer. And the reason for that is because if the government were to do that, then psychologically they're teaching us to expect to be granted freedom, either permanently or temporarily, rather than to view those innate freedoms and values as something which should be there by default and which shouldn't have to be asked for or requested, and therefore cannot be granted, particularly by a government who are supposed to be there to serve us. Their entire purpose is to uphold our way of life, our laws that we collectively agreed upon when in the foundations of English and British society. So I can't rule out that they'll be attempting to give us, or seeming to give us some freedom. I also think that it's possible that this freedom will come under the condition of having had the vaccine and being able to prove that you've had the vaccine. But although I do think that the vaccine is a large part of this, I don't think it's the key part of the overarching agenda. As I said, it's mostly about destroying the global economy and completely altering our financial system. As far as the vaccine goes, I'm not someone who necessarily believes that it's dangerous. So I and my family will not be having it. That's something that we have sworn to ourselves and to one another, and which I will swear to you now. We will not have it, but not necessarily because it's dangerous. It could well be dangerous, and I'd rather play it safe. But to me, the vaccine is like a symbolic thing. It's like branding your cattle. So if a government can essentially mandate a vaccine, if they can essentially tell you that they have the right to inject a needle into your body, the very thing that you should have full dominion over, then they are saying that you don't belong to yourself, you belong to them. And late last year, politicians in the UK, members of parliament, they debated this idea of a vaccine passport. And even though they concluded that they unanimously were in favour of vaccines, principally, they agreed that mandating some kind of vaccine passport would be unconstitutional. It would be un-British. Now, they won't be doing that. And this is where a point I'll come to in a minute leads to. But the other thing with the vaccines is that I don't believe that they want everyone to take it. If their promotional campaign for the vaccine was so successful that everyone, including people such as myself who don't trust the media or government at all, if we were to be taking the vaccine, then essentially the lockdown ends. I don't think that certainly they don't want the lockdowns to end yet, because the economy is only partially destroyed at the moment. They need probably several years more of lockdowns where business owners believe that they have to shut shop to customers, and therefore essentially sacrifice their own livelihood for this so-called greater good. The vaccine, the other issue with the vaccine is going to be pitching half of society, the vaccinated, against the other half, the unvaccinated. Government will never miss an opportunity to create further division in society. I mean, I say government, I'm specifically talking about this tyrannical government who really don't have any credibility or legitimacy in the eyes of people such as myself. So yeah, I think that people like us, if you're on the same wavelength as me, we should expect to be demonized for not taking the vaccine. We'll be the selfish ones who are not allowing society to go back to normal, who are not thinking of the greater good. This is something we're going to need to stand very, very strong on, and it's also something we're going to need to prepare for the consequences of that. If it means we can't travel, if it means we can't enter gyms or restaurants or whatever, so be it. So the next thing I'd like to talk about is stakeholder capitalism. Now, Klaus Schwab of the World Economic Forum has written on this concept. It sounds quite complicated and technical, and it took me a while to properly understand it. So I'm just going to do my best now to describe to you what stakeholder capitalism is. Basically, it's a move from authority being in the hands of the state to authority being in the hands of global corporations. So how they'll frame this is that government is no longer capable and should not have the sole responsibility for the green agenda, for upholding fairness and equality and a sustainability for this modern society, because of course we have corporations like Amazon and Google who are now more wealthy than, well, when you consider the amount of debt that nations are in, I mean, they're vastly more wealthy than even some of the biggest nations in the world. So it will be framed that it's their responsibility. It's the responsibility of these global corporations to look after society. It's their duty. And you know, some of us may think, yeah, it is. You know, their supply chain causes much of the pollution and the production of plastic, and they are responsible for fair treatment of workers and things like this. All the things that really matter in our modern age are actually largely dictated by corporations. But the flip side of this, it's a double-edged sword. The flip side of that is that whilst they're being given more responsibility, they're being asked, more is being asked of these corporations, they're also being given more power and authority to determine the way that we live our lives. That's what stakeholder capitalism is. So we're going to see this move towards, you know, I mentioned a few minutes ago that the British government probably won't mandate vaccine passports. These won't be state issued, but private corporations will decide whether you are allowed to enter their premises, work for them, board their planes, their trains, have certain other services provided to you. If you, you know, they'll decide if they can bar you from these things if you can't prove that you are a functioning, responsible member of a sustainable society. Along with this, I think we'll see an increase in a merging of state and private policing. So last year we saw the private security firm G4S assisting police with policing the lockdown protests. We're going to see more of that. So we're going to see the ability to legislate being given increasingly to private corporations, and we're going to see the ability to enforce that legislation increasingly given to private security, private policing companies. Along with the destruction of the economy comes the idea of UBI, Universal Basic Income. So at the moment, we have furlough schemes in Britain. The self-employed are given handouts to help them, you know, survive this this so-called pandemic. And what this is going to lead to is universal basic income. So eventually, after, you know, a couple more years of lockdown, potentially another 4 years of lockdown, on and off, when enough businesses are destroyed and enough jobs are lost, then the announcement will be made that there's a responsibility now to fund, to pay for the upkeep of these people who've lost their jobs to this unforeseen disaster. So universal basic income will be rolled out. People will accept it because they have no choice. But it's something we need to be extremely wary of, because imagine a society where you get caught speeding or you get a parking ticket. Instead of being sent a letter informing you and asking you to prove your innocence, that fine will be instantly and automatically taken out of your account. Imagine a society where you can't transact with someone because they have been deemed problematic, or you're not allowed to buy certain goods because those goods have been deemed part of an unsustainable economy. Or imagine you want to travel, and every petrol station you stop at to fill up your car, your location is logged and tracked, because the credits that you're using to pay for that are centrally controlled. So if you try to fill up your car too many times in a week, well, you shouldn't be driving that much, because this is there's an environmental crisis as well as an ongoing pandemic. You shouldn't be too far away from your home, and why do you need to drive that much anyway? So you may find that at a certain point, you're blocked from filling up your car any further. Digital UBI will be the death knell of free movement and free association and transaction. Also, we're going to see a huge rise in taxation, especially for those who are seen to have fairly large areas of land where they can grow crops or rear livestock. The argument will be that these people don't need that much land, and they don't know how to manage it sustainably. So we need to allow corporations to buy up that land, and if you want to hold it, then okay, but you're going to have to pay your way in increased taxes, because we need those taxes to fund the green agenda and all of this kind of thing. There'll also be hyperinflation. So the amount of money that's been borrowed to pay for all this is just extraordinary. The more money that's being printed, the more money is required to buy goods and services. So those goods and services will rise in value from our point of view, or the rise in cost. So over the next few years, things are going to become more expensive. Taxes are going to become higher. And this is another reason why UBI will be justified, because the cost of living has become so much and joblessness is so high that all that they can do is offer us a monthly allotment of digital credits. Lastly, and this one's a bit controversial, but this orchestrated and artificially taught hatred of the indigenous peoples of Europe in particular will ramp up. The narrative will be that in Britain, the people of Britain only own land because of the British Empire, because of resources that were stolen from elsewhere. And it will be said that this is unfair, that that these indigenous people of Britain and Europe don't deserve to particularly the upper middle class and the upper class who own vast tracts of land, even they'll come under fire for this. So yeah, I mean, these are my rough predictions for what we should expect over the coming years. I may not have caught everything. I may not have mentioned everything there. Some of what I mentioned may not quite happen how I mentioned it, but these are the things that I'm preparing for, and these are the things for which I'll be trying to offer solutions and preparations in the coming videos. So I didn't particularly enjoy having to do this video, and hopefully I won't have to do many like it, because I would rather be trying to uplift you. But as I said, we can't know what to prepare for unless we know... we can't know how to prepare unless we know what to prepare for. So these are some of the things that I think we need to prepare for. So thank you for watching, and be well, and I'll speak to you soon.